Hi, welcome and welcome back. I want to talk today about a topic called creative wisdom. And you may not have heard those terms before or those words put together before because I made them up, because I put them together. This idea that our creativity has wisdom behind it, and that the wisdom that we leverage through the knowledge and the experiences that we have can actually help produce better creative things that we want to bring into the world. And so I want to introduce you to this philosophy of creative wisdom, and then we're going to get into how to access this creative wisdom and why it's so important, especially if you feel this sense of mysticism, this sense of spirituality within your life, and that you are also looking at yourself as some type of creative, whether it's professionally or just as this intrinsic being in you, and that we're going to kind of talk about the blend between these two things. So, first, let's get into the philosophy of creative wisdom. And so, I've been guided to live this way for quite some time without really knowing how to coin it and put it together. But the more that I created and the more that I designed and the more that I led myself into these places and these spaces, I found this wisdom. So I have a background in design. I've been designing professionally for 25 years. I studied healing, energy medicine, and then I've also had a very long life of being in different religions as well as a lot of spirituality. So there's these concepts that we hear about, we know about, and then we integrate them and we embody them and then we lead with them. And so over this time of being in this very corporate professional design culture, I was operating with this high enthusiasm and a lot of burnout. And I was pushing myself as much as possible because I was always ready for the next creative project, the next big thing. And I just fed off of that. And what I didn't really understand was the true meaning of self-care and how to rest, that I started to look at taking a day off, like really resting and taking a day off and pursuing spiritual pursuits, whether it was studying text, learning, or merely just being quiet and being out in nature and connecting for hours. And so I had learned that while I was in these very heavy schedules and this really hectic, deadlines and timelines and everything of adding so much to my plate. When I took this one day off to rest, it actually replenished me and rejuvenated me for the rest of the week. And so it sort of prolonged this kind of pain of being able to work so hard, but then have this rest. And over the years, I've pulled back quite a bit, knowing where my edges are for burnout, because we can over-index our passion and we become a little too obsessive in our work. That rest is kind of a key ingredient, but it's not just any type of rest, and there are different levels to that. And so when I took that time for resting from work and I dove into this essence of spirituality and not just searching for meaning and looking for things, but really learning how to embody that. So I'm learning this wisdom and I'm taking it within and I'm going within. I want to bring you into this idea of getting into your own creative wisdom and understanding the depths of that and how to start entering into that space that's so special and that sacred space within us where we find this fountain of youth that we can tap into and it becomes our creative well. And when I started to do this more and more, I really cracked open. I was really able to build this inner sanctuary where I can emerge with life itself. And it didn't matter what was going on in the outside world. And then I started to alchemicalize thoughts, emotions that were really difficult into something directed in a better place. And so I started to get into how do I take this essence and apply it where I want to. And I feel that there's never an end to this type of journey, this self-discovery journey. We hit new levels. And so when I built this inner sanctuary, when I really started to understand that concept of this like sacred temple within, I started to notice that where everything had a message, a meaning, or a nudge to go in a direction to follow. And we start to get into this place where we're being led by our intuition, by our soul, by our inspiration, by that there's like this higher force that we're connected to that we know is moving us in the right direction for ourselves, even if we don't understand it, even if it's really, a little scary because it's in the unknown. but because we've centered within and we know we can move in that way. This is really the key, this key bridge between the mystic and the artist. And we're going to walk into this space little by little because I want to look at the specifics of what does it mean to start cultivating this. Accessing your creative wisdom is through contemplation, and there are two parts to this. And so in this video, we're going to discover and discuss the first part, and then I'll follow up with a second video to discuss the second part. And I'm doing this for a reason where we can really just sit with this idea as preparation for what's to come. And so in this first part of contemplation, in this beginning part, it is embracing the quiet. It's in the quiet that we start to open up our consciousness and our awareness of the infinite. It's here that we can start to define and enhance this connection that opens us up. This is really the mystic's medium. This is the place where the artist will get its inspired instructions, and it's a place to enter in communion with the essence of life and the best way to comprehend the beauties and the quality of reality. And so this might be a space where we're going to start to hear visions or voices, which is your intuition, your higher side, your guides, whatever you feel inclined to connect with. And there's a language that comes through, a light language, an inference of language that starts to transcend. And we start to discover this with this conscious mind of ours, with this conscious awareness that we have, that the logical mind isn't really allowed to be in. And so this becomes a very sacred act when we start to devote personal space, personal time to the devotion of connecting to the divine within. So there's an essence of you connecting back into you, and then you connecting to a higher source, a higher power. I really like to just refer to it as like the source of all power, the source of all creation. And whatever spiritual, religious labels you want to add, that's fantastic. That's for you. But I want to get into the concept of looking at this as an energetic force. And so it's through this practice of deep contemplation, this step-by-step process, that the growth of one's genius can expand. And it's through this gradual development, extraordinary concentration, a powerful attention opens up. A powerful spiritual attention starts to open up, like a lens opening up in the third eye. And like any artist with natural talent, we still require practice to this growth, which is this contemplation and this quietness that we're going to talk about, and giving us and allowing us to have this space to have this quietness to commune. And a lot of times I think we pass it over because we misunderstand what it's about. So while we can get downloads and insights and intuitions at any given time, it can be a one-hit wonder. It can be every so often, but when we want to have that deeper relationship with something higher than ourselves and with ourselves, like any relationship, you have to tend to it. You have to work on it. You have to participate with it, and you have to show up to it like anything, right? And like any scientist who easily observes must also be able to perceive something of the unknown to have deep hypothesis. So we're both the artist and the scientist. It's through contemplation that we can also see into other dimensions, this sort of heightened reality, a higher perspective, a higher frequency where natures and the cosmos exist. And it gets us out of the fray of the everyday. It's that life force of creation that is in constant motion. This is the space that we want to enter into to start to connect with. This is the value of the quietness and contemplation. And it's when we get lost in the moment of being and awareness past the self-ego and further concentration into the beingness and how we merge into life force. So this ultimate consciousness, connection, and belonging where all is one, where we're one with nature, but not just in a philosophical idea or some mental construct, that we're actually in a space feeling this, like we feel it within us. And when we can tap into that level of contemplation, this quietness of being, this now allows us to prepare to open. We get opportunities to look from our third eye when we're looking at nature, when we want to experiment or practice. We can go out in nature, we can look at a tree, we can look at the river, we can look at the oceans, we can look at a flame of a candle, and we can emerge with that element of nature and just feel its essence. And we start to blend the reality of where I begin and the candle begins, and it starts to just merge into one existence and experience. And so this is where we start to fully connect, even for a moment, to all life itself, because we start to feel the frequency that it runs on. And then we can align to that frequency and we start to get into what most artists call their flow state, because now you're in a rhythm. And so when we're in this moment, we can feel this deep, peaceful love and have it consume us. And it's the substance of pure life force. We now start to get to this. See how we start to prepare ourselves? We start to prepare ourselves for an experience, and we have to practice getting into these spaces. So, this practice develops our relationship with the allness, the oneness energy. And when we can take all of that oneness and that energy, we bring it in and we allow ourselves to connect as the foundation of a creative fountain. Being able to practice attuning with nature allows us to attune to ourselves. And then we start to attune inward. Now we can start to bring it in if we haven't already. And that inner journey is really to the center of ourselves. How well do we know ourselves? How well can we feel ourselves in the moment without thinking? Because we're still in this quietness. And we have this humble receptiveness, this still and steadiness where emotions, thought, and the will are lost for a moment. And yet they infuse with the contemplation and that passionate fire that we have for life. So there's this ebb and flow that's happening in the quietness and the stillness. We're being active, yet at rest. And so we have to practice concentrating on the invisible and the intangible so that the artist can bring a sharper focus to it. So we're not trying to meditate or think about anything specifically. We're not even trying to wait for information at this point. We just want to practice being in quiet solitude in the stillness of life and connecting with life itself. It's this sense that I can feel my heartbeat. I can feel the breath within. I can be in this existence of life in harmony with it and feel the connection. This is where we start, right? Again, I'm going to just keep using this is that key that opens the door. We're not going to get in, we're not going to walk through the door today. We're just opening the door. And so in mystical language, there is this blending into nothingness, this blank void space where you turn inward and listen. And that is the goal, that you can feel the vibrations and the frequencies of life, and you are just open to listening. And it's in that quiet contemplation that we can bring all aspects of our power back to us. We're not focused on emails, to-do lists, work happening, checking our phone. We're just in the beingness of life, and we bring all of our attention, all the fragments of our soul, everything back to us for this moment in time. This replenishes us. This helps us refill ourselves. And this is also a place where reason cannot come. This is not about the logical mind. This is not about trying to make this perfect. This is just the beautiful stillness in feeling all the senses coming in at one place. And to do this work properly, all you have to do is just pour back into you, back into the stillness and the quiet, forgetting about the outside world and moving into this knowing from a space that is between you and the cosmos. It's that in-between space. That's the space where we want to get to, where you can feel the twinkle of the stars, not just see them. And true quietness is actively embracing the stillness. It's a bridge which leads us from the outer world into a new unified life that will eventually lead into deeper action. And so when we can move the consciousness into almost kind of a blank slate, we allow ourselves to truly listen and absorb everything, an absorption into the nothingness, into the all. And it's an active state where we clear the mind, not idleness and not boredom. And so this is where we really prepare. This is the stage that we prepare for a way of opening a door of receptivity. And it's with practice that we'll be able to reside in this divine life and this blissful connection as an unresisting instrument. So when we talk about heart-centered projects and purpose in life and being led by the soul, This is the beginning of that. This is us preparing ourselves so that we can have the space because we're carving it out. We're making time for it. We're devoted to ourselves and our relationship with ourselves and with something higher. So we want to allow the time and the space to bring in that information, to bring in that sense of ourselves and to allow ourselves to connect with ourselves. And so, this balance between active and passive is a pure surrender that's free and it feels renewing. It's self-giving and self-emptying at the same time. And this passionate love that we have for all things of life. It's like taking in a really nice, long, fresh breath of air. We feel it, it's self-giving, it's life-giving, and then we release, we exhale, we let go, and we self-empty out. We let it empty out, and we do that ritual over and over again. And so the results of this, as I keep talking about this door opening, is that, and while we can listen and hear things, the goal of being quiet is really just to open the door. We're getting to a place where we see a door and we're allowing it to open so that the divine can come in divine timing. The goal of this is that we hit a frequency of love of all life and that we can sit in the atmosphere of that sweet essence. That's the goal of the quietness that we feel, that we can start to alchemize our space, our time to connect in at a higher level of the beingness of us. No pressure, no expectations, no performance. It's just you being with you. And it's in that quietness that reveals the essential transitional state that allows the self to enter into a higher activity. And so from this place is where we start to then possibly move into action. And it's from this inward surrender that the real self emerges and can move into new existences and new knowledge surfaces. So if you have visions about your life, if you have visions about what you want to do, or you have desires, this is what you want to practice, this quietness and this stillness of going within to just be in the energy and the frequency of what it is that you want without trying to over-index on visions or fantasies. We're in a contemplative state of quietness, of contemplating the stillness and the quietness of life itself. That's the frequency we want to pick up on. And this is where we step into our own personal wisdom, and then we can begin the creative process. So I would recommend, whether you've done this all the time or this is still new to you, when you think about finding quiet time for yourself, if it is new, focus on an object that maybe an object in nature that you can blend with, that you can just really pick up its essence from. And if you've been doing this a long time, maybe try slightly different reframing of it if you haven't done it so far, if you haven't done it before, where you're in the beingness of being. You're in the stillness of your essence and self. And you can feel that divine love, that unity, that all is one. Not just think about it, not just theorize it, but feel it so that it's integrated and it's embodied within you. And just feel that expansion and that love and that depth and see how you hold that. And from there, you may hear things. From there, you may get insights or knowings and downloads. That's wonderful. And so I'm going to leave this here to just practice on this. And then in the next video, we're going to talk about how to apply your creative wisdom, how to open up and now take what you've been hearing, hold that energy and leverage it into the work that you do. I'm also going to launch a program coming up. I'm very excited about it. It's called Into the Mystic, where we really walk into these steps in depth and we start to practice and open up that blend between our mystic side and our artistic side and how they merge together. And we start creating with our own wisdom. So thank you all for being here. I love you all, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.